I would like to know, what would Source do in a situation where you would have a negative experience or emotion, not in particular to any situation, I mean, in like a person or anything, but just in general, because I would like to go from general and then slowly start fine-tuning it. And I would like to learn how to do that, going from the general and fine-tuning what Source thinks about me currently. What would Source do about this? How would I think about that feeling, that emotion?
Well, we like the direction of your question because it's in alignment with this body of work and where it is currently focused, which is step 5. So step 1 is ask, step 2 is source answer, step 3 is align with what you're asking for, step 4 is master that so you're really good at it, which is what you're attempting to do here. And then step 5 is being consciously happy in the midst of contrast. And that's what Source does. So when you say, what does Source do? Source lives in step 5. We don't freak out when there's contrast. We understand the value of the contrast. And the contrast that exists does not take us from our high vibration. A softer, easier way to say that to you is, we don't worry about you when you're worried about you or ever. We don't worry about you. We have our undivided attention on the vortex version of yourself that you have created. So if you step away from the vortex version, if you for a moment lose your place between where you are and your vortex version, that's when you start feeling negative emotion. We don't go there with you, and that's why you feel negative emotion. So not only what would Source do, you might ask, why would Source do it? And the answer is because we know the value of feeling good. We know the value of feeling good. We know that feeling good means alignment. And in alignment, there is power. In alignment, there is creation. There is deliberate creation. So you want to take some subject and move it from outside alignment into general and then into more specific alignment? Or are you happy with the conceptual explanation that we just gave you?
Love.
Love is really good because love is that unconditioned. Love is the ultimate unconditioned. Love is what Source feels about you, regardless of what you feel about yourself. Do you know what the biggest evidence of your inner being's never-ending love for you is? Do you know what the most often biggest evidence of it is? Your own negative emotion. Because if it were not for the way Source feels about you, you could not feel the opposite of it. You could not feel the absence of it. So every time you feel negative emotion, you know what Source would do? If Source were to ever feel negative emotion?
Love.
Acknowledge that it's the presence of love that even makes that negative emotion possible. That was very big. All emotions are relational. All are relational. So a lot of people use the word love and they're not feeling it. It's sort of a goal. Enough?
I had also a wanting to know of how to interact with people that are negative, that would be negative, because I do understand the contrast they provide and I see that in them, but how do I interact with them in such a way?
If you do, you see, this is the same question that we just talked about just now. And if you do understand them, then you've already got that handled, because you don't need them to be different in order to feel good. You feel good regardless of how they feel.
But how do I help them?
Well, here's the question that we have for you, and you're really going to like this. Do you accept that you are an extension of Source energy?
Yes.
And do you accept that Source energy is aware of you at all times?
Yeah.
And do you accept that you have a relationship with that Source energy that you can feel through your emotions?
Yes.
And do you accept that whether you're allowing it or not, Source is there for you?
Yes.
And do you accept that it's the same for them too?
Yes.
So if you're feeling negative emotion and Source can't come and get you and take you out of it, you have to meet Source over in that better feeling place. Isn't that true of them too? What we're asking of you because you're a teacher to the very core of your being. What we're asking of you is that if Source can't go bring them out of their funk, why do you think that you should? But Source does something that most humans don't do. Source doesn't fret about it. Source doesn't worry about it. Source doesn't judge them in their funk. Source doesn't condemn them for being there. Source patiently holds the vision of who they really are, giving them the ultimate opportunity to join. And that's what you do for someone. That's how you help them. You see them as you know them to be, and you don't torture them with your words.
I also had a question about wanting to know how mostly stay in the words of that Source, those beautiful, positive things are always working out for me. That's the fine tuning I was trying to get into from the general, because then you get general, you get everything's working out for me. Things are great. Look at this is wonderful. I'm loving this. Then I just feel it and I just get into it. And then things and situations come, and then I'm aware of these things, and I'm like, oh, that's the connection I make. But what more words or what more things are there that I can...
Well, here's the thing. You're going to really like this. When you realize that feeling good is natural for you, that your cork will float up there in that pure positive energy unless you hold it under the water. So let's say you're feeling good and then you focus on your friend that you're worried about, so you hold it under the water. And so when you don't do those things that take you away from your alignment, then your alignment just becomes more steady and consistent and natural, and then you do it with greater ease. And so what would keep someone from being in that high-flying, good-feeling place more of the time? What does keep you from being there? Well, it's attention to things that are of a different vibration. And so that's why we're talking about step 5. That's why we're talking about being more unconditional. That's why your shirt says it all. It says it all. It is the not letting whatever this condition is be big enough or important enough that it throws the resistance. It's like putting a stick in a fast-moving wheel. What keeps anybody from being in that place that you are describing that you want to be is witnessing of life that is of a different vibrational nature. And so if you overlay everything that you are, your intention to feel good anyway, your intention to feel good anyway, your intention to diffuse rather than infuse, your intention to play unwanted things down rather than play them up, your intention to soothe, your intention to chill, your intention to make it feel better, so that wherever you are, if that's your intention, then you're constantly diffusing anything that doesn't feel good. And after a little bit, we're talking about a few days or weeks of consciously diffusing, what happens is your set point just keeps moving upward, upward, upward until it becomes a non-issue for you. It's just natural for you to feel good. You're never going to be in a place where there is not something that is unwanted. There will always be contrast in your experience, and there will always be things that are resistant in nature. But someone who is really living the way they've intended to live is someone who acknowledges that there are unwanted things and doesn't make a big deal out of the unwanted things by being mad at self. Step 5, we're going to say it in a very brief, quotable form. Step 5 is no longer being mad at yourself because you're in step 1. That's what step 5 is. And so just think about it. If something happens and you say, it's cool, and something happens and you say, well, that's cool, and something else happens and you say, well, I'm not going to worry about that, and something else happens and you say, things are always working out for me, and something else happens and you say, well, it's all part of the process, and something else happens and you say, well, this negative thing may be being inspired to that problem, because in the examining of that problem, I'm going to find a bigger solution that I wouldn't have had access to before. As you begin to say things like that, or you continue to say things like that, then after a while, you're free in the world. You're not guarded. We've watched so many of you as you've been listening to us and learning from us, and really not learning from us, but hearing the confirmation from us that your own life is helping you to understand. And we see you sometimes say, oh, I've really got this, but those people at work are so negative. And you feel guarded about them because you feel protective of your state of alignment. When you are no longer protective of your state of alignment because you know it is reachievable in any moment of any day, then you are really frisky and free to move out in the world. Otherwise, you want to cluster together in groups of people that think just like you do. And that's a really conditional life. That's that guarded, trying to control circumstances and conditions in order to feel good. And you're not ever going to be happy when you believe that you have to control conditions and circumstances in order to be happy. You're only ever going to be happy when the whole world is out there for you to explore and examine, and you're not afraid of any of it because you know that there's no assertion, so nothing unwanted is going to assert itself in your experience. And if something does come into your experience, you know you have called it and you know what to do about that. You see. And now there are so many others who you might even categorize as negative in nature, who are full of delicious gifts for you. Some of your most negative friends are really funny. And some of them are full of sporadic insight. They don't give it to you very often, but every now and again they lay something on you so profound that you bless the day you met them. And so it's a big world out there full of all kinds of diversity. We want you to love your diversity because it is your power and your strength, and it is your future, because without it, there could be no new desires born within you. And the new desires that are continually being born within you, that's life, you see. That's the promise of eternalness. Yeah.
Are there any words, per se, that you can help us remember that where we came from, those words of feel-good words, those words?
We like your question again, because think about the receiving mode and think about the fact that we aren't speaking words to you. We're offering vibration, and Esther's finding words that sort of match it, and you all can do it too. So realize that we are projecting, we are radiating, we are extending, we are focusing who you are and what we know about you, the whole version of you. We're focusing that to you at all times, and you are reaching for the inspired words. So when you get into that place of alignment, then the words come to you, and you said it to us already today. The word is love. When you feel that, when you feel those goosebumps rippling up over you, last seminar, which was yesterday in Boston, during the segment of refreshment, Esther went through the kitchen and to her sleeping room. And as she got into the service elevator, a young man was there who, when he saw her, came to the conclusion that she was in the wrong elevator. And so he explained to her, in the future, you must use the guest elevators. And as he was looking at Esther, then, before she could say anything to him, he said, but you didn't know. And Esther felt the love of Source wash all down all around her as he was giving her the benefit of the doubt. He wanted to be helpful, but you didn't know. In other words, there was no negative judgment about what he was believing was a mistake that Esther had made. And so many times complete strangers will receive the message that Source has for you and speak it right out loud to you. Like that. That's what happened then. That was Source just loving on Esther through the path of least resistance. But it is even more delicious when those thoughts occur to you. But let's not make it about words, because there are not enough words in the world to convey the love that we feel for you. Yeah?